Before we get into the topics, I would love if you could just welcome yourself in. Just tell us what you're up to in the world, what you're about, and I appreciate you being here on tonight's call. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. It's good to be back again. And it's awesome that we've already had a dress rehearsal, so this is our second time round, so we'll be even more on point.
Yeah.
Love it, brother. Yeah, so what I'm about is, well, for those that don't know me, my biggest mission and my passion and my obsession in life is it's empowering people to be the expression of their spirit, to let their authentic spark shine through in life. And yeah, I believe that one of the most empowered expressions of that is for us to be an entrepreneur, is to create a business, is to create the vehicle create our own vehicle for riding through life in the most magnificent way possible. So empowering entrepreneurs, empowering people to either step into a business or a career that they love, and helping people like access and activate that internal guidance, that internal wisdom, and just to be the light that they're meant to shine into the world through business, through defining their career as something that really they can live their passion. So that's the thing that excites me the most, and that's what I work with people one-on-one, with retreats, with training courses, a whole lot of different amazing things, which I'll share more about as we go. But that's the essence of who I am, is activating greatness within people so they can do more about what they love and be their authentic expression of themselves in this life.
Boom. That's probably one of the best descriptions I've heard just straight off the bat. That was like almost
That's what
freestyle.
I do. That's my thing.
But it's ingrained because it's your thing. I love that. And I love that greatness and all the things that you spoke about too. Yeah, it's just refreshing to hear that in everyday life. It's not too many people speak about greatness inside of ourselves, as well as activating, unlocking that genius that we have within. And so I'm very curious, before we get into the topic, I would love to just talk about, you mentioned one-on-one, but you also mentioned retreats. And what do you find for you more captivating in terms of transmitting that greatness or being able to open up that greatness for your clients?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a retreat experience is totally different than a one-on-one coaching experience. And some of the people watching may have been to retreats before, they may have experienced one-on-one coaching. I don't know whether you can say that one is necessarily better than the other. They're just completely different energies. And one-on-one coaching, you can go so deep because when you have that one-on-one attention, you can really pick out that root cause of what's the thing holding you back. And at the same time, when you're in a retreat, you've also got this beautiful energy, this combined energetic experience of everyone that's coming along for the journey. And so there's many layers of things that get added, like vulnerability and this camaraderie, and just a sense of everyone coming together and creating, beautiful lifelong friends. So they're very, very different experiences, both incredibly powerful, and I love them both. They're both amazing.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely. And you can get the one-on-one experience when you're in a retreat as well. So something to add. Awesome, brother. Let's dive into first and foremost. I'm just gonna basically, because we've done this before, we're gonna rapid fire into it and open up the can of worms. Just starting with the hacking of consciousness and the hacking of changing your reality. Let's just get that pried open and speak to what consciousness is all about and how we can even begin to hack that for those that are watching the replay. And just mentioning, as Chris is answering this question, I'm just going to be sharing this to my Facebook. So sharing the live to my actual Facebook page. So my head's going to be in another direction for a few moments. So please answer the question away.
Yeah, cool. Well, the first bit you touched on was consciousness. That's one of my biggest passions, is helping people embrace a whole new level and depth of consciousness. And I think, like, what is consciousness? When we're talking about consciousness, what are we even talking about? Well, when I say consciousness, I think we're referring to our level of conscious awareness of ourselves, which then empowers us with the ability to be the expression of the greatest version of ourselves. So for me, that's my definition of consciousness, is when we understand ourselves so well that we recognize how to break through our limitations. First of all, identifying and having awareness of, well, what are our limitations? What are we choosing to believe? What are we choosing our reality to even be? And we'll get into this in a level deeper as we go through the conversation. But it's starting to be aware of our thinking. It's conscious awareness is the ability to observe your thinking, so that you can actually step outside of the programs and the patterns and the conditioning of our habits as being a human, And we can now observe it from a higher level of consciousness to be able to override some of the natural programs, things like limiting beliefs and the ego and these sorts of things. So with conscious awareness comes our ability to create empowered results. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about consciousness, which is a pretty awesome skill to have to be able to.
Whoa. Yeah, there you go. Just dropping in that it's even a skill in the first place. And you spoke about empowered results. So in other words, you might be getting results, but when we talk about empowered results, at least what's landing for me is because you have the conscious awareness, you chose those results as opposed to just like a result showing up and like, I don't really know how I got this. Like, I'm not really sure how this landed or being able to sustain those results. So it's another thing too, that conscious awareness, moving in that light of awareness into your thoughts, into your habits, into your habitual patterning, so that you can make an empowered result, that you can make a nice cash, by the way. I was straight into it. He's consciously aware of this.
I've got enough charge on my phone now. I'm consciously aware that now I can set it up correct.
Yeah,
all good.
Definitely. And so that, guess you spoke about limiting beliefs. We might as well drop in naturally with the flow of things into limiting beliefs now. Which I know, and the reason I asked you this is because you give such a wonderful definition of it. Like I've heard a lot of people speak about limiting beliefs, and it's like one of those buzzwords. But the way you describe it and the analogy and the imagery you bring to beliefs and our limiting beliefs, it's just a great thing for anyone to pick up and understand and embody.
Yeah, well, I love sharing the concepts of understanding what a belief is and what a limiting belief is, because this is the fabric of this is how you radically transform and upgrade your consciousness, is you create awareness of what do we actually believe. And because for most people, our beliefs they're essentially, what the simplest definition of a belief is simply an experience that you have, or a reference point that you develop, or a thought that you have that just gets created, and you think it so many times in your mind that it creates a neural pathway in your mind, which basically is the shortest connection to creating what reality is for us. So you think something over and over and over again, and all of a sudden you end up with a belief. So for example, something happens when you're 2 years old, maybe your parent smacks you. You think, oh, I'm not good enough. Maybe when you're 5 years old, a teacher, you get a C- on your maths test, and the teacher says you're dumb, right? Maybe you get rejected from asking a pretty girl out at school when you're like 9 years old. She rejects you. I'm not good enough. So we have these reference points that then give us some sort of perspective, which we then choose. We make a decision in the moment. Oh, this is the way reality is. This is the way my life is. And then as a result, we now rewire a neural pathway. We create a thought habit, which is simply a belief. And all beliefs are just convenient assumptions of reality. They're just convenient assumptions of what reality is. So, as we're going through life, we're just sampling data points. We're just sampling, I had this experience, and this experience, right? And so all we're doing is we're just sampling moments in time, and then that's creating our experience of what we believe to be true. So, if you grow up in a third world country, you might be sampling data points, which is we live in a world of poverty. We live in a world of lack. We live in a world that's horrible. As opposed to maybe growing up with a billionaire father, and maybe you grow up in a world with, geez, well, I'm in abundance. I've got everything I could ever need. This is the most amazing life ever. And it's just been created through these sample points, through these experiences. We then form our beliefs. And now, as a conscious human being, we now have an opportunity to recognize, wow, well, what I believe is simply as a consequence of all the conditioned experiences and choices and decisions and reference points that have happened to me. So we all kind of get conditioned and programmed by our experience. So our beliefs are simply cultivated and curated by our experience. So then when we have conscious awareness, we can then observe, wow, I have these beliefs. They're not necessarily true. They appear true, but are they actually absolutely true? And so this is where conscious awareness and the whole conversation we're having, this is when it goes to a whole level deeper, because we start to recognize, well, hang on, all the beliefs we've got, we've created them. We've made them up. Now, are they serving us? Are they actually doing us any favors?
So you got to filter through. Okay, anyone that's just tuning in now, that was incredible, because we spoke about the convenient assumption of reality, which are beliefs. So this convenient assumption. And now we spoke about consciousness, bringing that conscious awareness to, hang on, we created all these beliefs. We also get to choose. Are these serving me in these moments? Are these like holding on to this belief? Is that restricting my potential? and making, reducing my impact or creating a better life for myself, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess the next question to ask is, you bring yourself to that awareness and you're like, oh, sweet, I found a limiting belief. But sometimes it can be hard to take responsibility of the fact that we are creating all these things. Like, it's so nice to just be like, oh, it's that thing or that person. And you know what I mean? Like, kick it back and it's going, oh, it's out of my control. But the fact is, you're telling us basically that we have control over all the beliefs that we're creating. So really have control of all the reality that we're creating, in our own personal world, and how that intersects with different people's realities. So that's a big responsibility if we're willing to take that on.
Mm.
Can that be a responsibility that becomes very, like, let's just say we've found those limiting beliefs? Can that be daunting, or can it be a very empowering thing when we start crushing some of those limiting beliefs? I mean, now step into our power, going, you know what? I am the creator, knowing that I'm creating all my beliefs, and that is affecting the way I perceive reality. So, what's your little personal perspective on moving and shifting through those limiting beliefs, crushing them? I like that word, crushing those limiting beliefs to step into that power, and where can it be a bit like daunting? Like, oh my gosh, like it's just easier to blame it on someone else or to
Yeah.
blame it on my past.
And it's interesting because the perspective that someone chooses to have around how they deal with their limiting beliefs, i.e., the level of responsibility that you're wanting to take, is a belief. Right? So,
So
so
true.
it's going to be a vicious cycle because we might have a belief that is, oh, it's uncomfortable to maybe to go through personal growth. It's uncomfortable. Maybe it's just scary, or maybe it's, oh my God, I don't know if I can do it. So we now got to fight against all these beliefs in order to actually maybe come to the perspective to be empowered to actually move beyond the beliefs. So
Mm,
this is my personal belief, and I think this is a very empowering belief. But by taking responsibility for all the beliefs that we've created, now, the thing is, we've created all of our beliefs. We can be the only ones that can create our beliefs because no one else can go inside of our mind and and program us. Right? We are the ones that do the thinking. We are sovereign beings, 100% in control of our thinking at all times. Now, yes, we make conscious decisions and we also made some unconscious decisions, but I think through that awareness, it's freedom. We're liberated because we can take responsibility for, you know what, I've created my experience of reality. Now, admittedly, there might have been some stuff that happened. Maybe there's some stuff that happened really young, and it caused me to make an unconscious decision in the moment to maybe create some limiting belief. But I can own that. You know what? I created that, and by us taking ownership of that, that's true empowerment. And when we take responsibility for being empowered to change our beliefs and to acknowledge that we do have them, there's freedom in that. There is liberation. There truly is a full sense of empowerment. However, in order to embrace being empowered to create change, we've got to take responsibility, and we need to have the courage to move through that comfort zone of knowing that, look, if we want to change things, it's going to be an uncomfortable journey. And look, and that's a whole nother level of embracing vulnerability and embracing going through this courageous moving beyond your comfort zone. And that, I believe, that's the ultimate journey. That is the journey to greatness, is having enough courage to decide that it's worth it. And even more than
mm.
worth it, it's our responsibility as a conscious human being to break through that.
Interesting. Yeah, and I definitely can resonate with the courage that it takes, as well as the willpower and the ability to, to go to that vulnerable place that is sometimes uncomfortable to explore. And so to feel empowered in that, to feel liberated, what what is necessary action wise? Okay, let's just take a scenario where I've had a limiting belief ingrained in me for 20 years, right? And suddenly I have this conscious awareness of it. But I'm like, this is 20 years. Can this change in a few days? Can this work, like this wiring of my, circuit in my brain where this limiting belief has gotten so comfortable in and so quick at firing, and just dependent on the external environment, it's like, oh, that's the thing, fire it up, already reacting. My body's reacting in a way based on that limiting belief. But how can, in your experience and in your expertise, how quickly can we shift? Can we shift like that with that awareness and move into that courage and then that action? And then, because I guess once again, it comes down to your beliefs. If you believe that you can shift it that quickly, will it happen? That's a good question to ask, I guess,
Yeah, it's a
to
great
you.
question. Yeah, I think one of the best concepts to sort of explain this is, and Joe Dispenza talks a lot about this, but ultimately neuroscientists have come to a consensus, and we know that about 5% of our behavior comes from our conscious mind. 95% of our behavior comes from our unconscious mind, right? So our unconscious mind is all of the patterns, all the programming, it's all the programming conditioning that's been happening for our whole entire life. So
Right.
it's almost like we now have a conscious mind that says, right, I want to go this way. Like maybe I want to quit smoking. I want to eat healthy food. I want to exercise. I want to do this. I want to go up and approach that pretty girl and ask her out in a date. Whatever it is, that's our conscious mind that's it, which we've got 5%. But then 95% is like the conditioning of our past and the patterns and the programs and things like the ego, which might be pointing in a different direction. So it's like, well, I want to go this way, but my conscious mind wants to go this way. My unconscious mind's going this way. So there's now a war. There's like a battle inside our mind.
Yeah.
Now, so what we need to use, we need to use our conscious mind, like our conscious awareness, to then hack and override the programming in our unconscious mind. So this is how we change beliefs. We need to consciously reflect on our beliefs and go, well, first of all, we need to be aware of them, right? Because if you have no awareness of your limiting beliefs, you can't change it. You can't change what you're not aware of, right?
Right.
So
awareness is key. So first step, awareness.
Awareness is the first thing. Awareness precedes change. Awareness is the first step. If you don't have awareness, you can't change anything. Once you've then created awareness, you then need to actually acknowledge, right, how the belief has been conditioned, how it's been cultivated, how it's affecting you, when it's playing out, when it gets triggered, when it doesn't get triggered. So we need to now go to work on understanding it. So first level is awareness. Then the next level is understanding, which is more of understanding about the context of, well, when did I choose to believe this? How is it happening? Like, how am I thinking this way? And then the next level is starting to critique and go, well, actually, it's not even, is this belief even true? Right? So now what we're doing is we're recognizing, well, hang on, we might have a belief that, that I'm not good enough, for example. Now, we just use this as an example because I think this is really powerful and a lot of people resonate this. Well, is it necessarily that, and this is what you do, you ask these kinds of questions. Well, hang on, is it necessarily that I'm not good enough? Or is it that I just maybe haven't got the skill or the knowledge or the experience, or maybe surrounded myself with the mentors or got the education yet, or maybe I just haven't broken through my comfort zone. So maybe it's nothing to do with being good enough. Maybe you already are good enough. You just haven't maybe got the skills, the knowledge, the experience, or taken action and created it yet. So this is this is your conscious mind that you're using to interrupt the unconscious patterns and to create awareness of, okay, what we're now doing is the metaphor is it's like shaking your grip on reality. It's almost like we're gripping imagine you're like gripping a drumstick, right? And like, you're banging the drum with it. But what happens is after a while is when you think and when you challenge your belief, it's like loosening the grip on that stick. And every time you have a thought that when you're challenging that, it loosens the grip to the point where you can actually drop it and actually let it go. So you can do that through conscious awareness. You can do that through a lot of meditation. You can do it through processes like hypnosis, through timeline therapy, through just taking action, through surrounding yourself with like-minded people, through reading books, through a lot and having a lot of personal reference points. There's a whole lot of different ways that you can let go of a belief, but it's 100% possible. And I've seen clients let go of all sorts of beliefs like this, but it all starts with, first of all, being aware, understanding it, and challenging it. So unless you do those three, you're going to stay with you. It's going to stay with you unless you go through those things. So they're interesting. And I'll just add the last couple of steps, which is we then now need to go and take different action. So we need to take different actions in our life, i.e. make different decisions. And then once we've made different decisions, we then now start to create a new habit, a new thought habit, which is now creating a different belief. So for example, you might have a belief, I'm afraid of being rejected, or which is a belief that it's a belief that, look, if I get rejected, it means I'm not good enough. Or if I get rejected, then it means I'm no good. As opposed to, look, maybe you just go up and approach some girls at the bar. Maybe you go and approach some girls at the park, at the supermarket. And if by taking action, then what you do is you now teach your unconscious mind, you know what, I survived that. That's all good. Like, we're sweet here. Like this, we're okay. So by taking action, we transform our limiting beliefs. If we take no action, then we have no reference points. We have no ability to integrate and embody that new behavior. So this is why a lot of people will read a book and they'll know intellectually what they've got to do. But if they don't take any action, they can't update the software. You can't integrate that change. So this is why action is a necessary antidote.
Awareness and action, those two together to update the software. I love that you put that, update the software. I mean, hands up right now, and anyone that's watching, I've been called out in that before, where I went through a very big period in my life where I was just reading a ton of books. And I was just like, yeah. I was like, I understand that and I understand that intellectually. And I was like, even spitting out different beliefs and concepts that I hadn't even embodied. And so I was walking around like a someone that didn't actually embody the thing that he was talking about, but thought I kind of had it down. And so that's the key too, is taking action to update the software. And now I'm fine. I'm reading less books, but I'm more in the action of it where I can adjust. And I feel like action is the trump card here. Like you can have all the awareness of it, but it's really until you're creating that reference point for your body, which is mostly your unconscious mind, is your body. Until you're creating that reference point, it has nothing tangible in the physical at least to grab onto to go, oh, he did just go for the last 2 hours into 15 different stores and bars and talk to maybe 30 different girls. Like, of course, it's going to change how you react to the situation of being rejected, where it's like, hang on a minute, that wasn't so bad. I didn't die. You know what? And in fact, I didn't feel like I wasn't good enough in that case. I actually felt kind of proud of myself for doing that, and moving on and moving on. And so, yeah, it's just a really good thing to add is those key steps, the awareness. And I guess the next question for me is like, what inspires, like, how that action really comes from? There's got to be something that wants to like move you to do that. And how do you get into that thing that's like, oh, I feel inspired to take action? Like you might have the awareness, you're like, oh, I really, you've just read that book, or I really want to quit smoking. But what's the thing that pushes it over? Is it a mentor? Is it someone that like, oh, I want to be like that person, they're doing it? Is it something internally where you shift your identity, where you're like, actually, I'm identified as an athlete, so going to the gym's easy for me? Like, what is it that's going to be the thing that's like, I'm inspired to take action? Because I know, and me personally too, there's been areas where I've been aware of these things, but I haven't felt the inspiration come through where I'm like, how come I'm still trapped, where I don't feel like I can take action?
Mm. That's a great question. For different people, they're going to find that there's different elements that inspire them in different ways. So for some people, they're going to find if you focus on the consequences of not taking action, like if you focus on the pain and the negative consequences, sometimes that's like lighting a fire underneath you and you're just like, this is so uncomfortable, I'm going to take action, right? So the pain of not taking action actually outweighs the fear or the resistance of that thing in the moment, right? So you can actually use your fear to your advantage. So that's one way of doing it, right? So I did that for a long, and to a degree, look, I still do it in terms of what a big part of what drives me is knowing that we're only here for a very, very short space of time in this life. Like this is such a beautiful small window of opportunity for us to live our dream. So for me, what I can utilize to my advantage is just recognizing, geez, I don't have a lot of time here. I get one crack at this. Now look, we might get a couple more opportunities in terms of multiple lives, but in terms of how we're approaching this conversation now, it's like, do you want to gamble on it? Like, so my approach is, hey, this is my one life that I get. I get one crack at it. This is not going to be a dress rehearsal. I'm going all in. So for me, I use the fear of like what will be like when I get to the end of my life to know that I didn't express myself. I didn't move beyond that. So that's one way. Obviously, there's another way is just looking at the magnificence and moving towards and setting goals and setting inspiring visions for ourselves. Meditating and visualizing the experience before it's happened is another way to recognize, look, there's this beautiful future in front of me waiting for me, and I just haven't created the thought loops or the thought habits yet to believe it yet. So we can hack our unconscious mind and hack our sense of what's possible just by thinking, just by meditating, just by going on YouTube and looking at motivational videos or looking at people that have done amazing things, like the Elon Musks of the world or the Richard Bransons, looking at these reference points. That's another way of hacking a sense of what, to be inspired and as well as, wanting to be a better friend, to be a better mum or a dad, and saying, look, if I want to show up as the best version of myself and be able to give to the people I love, I've got some work to do. I've got to push through my limitations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for putting that out there, because what's coming through theme-wise is there's multiple ways that we can hack depending on what works for you, whether that's a fear of the consequence, or sorry, the consequences outweigh the fear itself or the resistance. And it's like, oh, I got to do something because the consequences are far worse than not doing anything. Or whether it's being inspired itself through watching YouTube videos or reading those books or hacking, like having that emotional quotient to that future potential that you want to be in, and start being that. And so there's a few different ways there. And what's coming through as a theme for me is it seems like, coming back to the awareness thing, it's about the questioning. It's about the questioning. You mentioned like, oh, how would the best version of myself take action right now, or handle this, or even back like with the belief thing, like where you're moving into understanding the belief. It's like, when does this get triggered? Why is this getting triggered? What's the effect of this belief when it is triggered? How are my energy levels? So it seems like there's this element, and coming back to conscious awareness, where questioning is such a game changer. Like, how many times are we questioning things moment to moment versus just like, oh, I know this, or that's the answer, or not having that curiosity of life to question and to inquire inside what's going on, what's running the show, why is this running this way? Knowing that we can reprogram the software and take action based on that. So I would love if we could just, throw in a game-changing question that we could ask, that you can ask yourself, or that you might use yourself, that we could put out there to the audience, to anyone that's watching the replay as well, that they can take home and go, oh, that is a game-changing question.
Mm. Yeah, I'll give you a couple. So I'd say the first question really is that some of the questions we can ask ourselves are things like, based on what I'm experiencing in my life right now, like, am I actually taking action based on what's important to me? Like, am I actually taking action in alignment with what's important to me? Right? Which is living your life in alignment with your core values. Like, so that your actions and your behavior is congruent and in alignment with what's really important. Right? For example, there's a lot of people out there that focus on the non-important. They're literally, they get worried about the smallest things. They get worried about, have I got my makeup on today? They get worried about, have they vacuumed the carpet before someone visits their house? Like, these sorts of things. Or they get worried. They worry about the tiniest little things. However, if you ask someone, what's the most important thing in your life right now, which could be their family, their health, it could be their personal development, and then you ask them, well, if that's important to you, what are you actually doing about it? And then they go, well, I'm not really doing anything. I think that's a key distinction that's going to empower people with the self-awareness to know, wow, this is probably the biggest thing that I need to be taking action on in my life, and I'm not doing anything about it. So the question is, am I taking action in alignment with the things that are most important to me? That's the ultimate question. And if not, why? Like, what's the internal parts of myself? What are my limiting beliefs? What are those habits, or what are those patterns that I'm running that are preventing me from living in alignment with my highest values? And that is ultimate empowerment. This is probably one of the most powerful questions anyone can ask themselves, after they're watching this. That's power.
That is. Okay. Love that question. Definitely going to be implementing that throughout my days. So I'm visioning people that are asking themselves that question, and I'm envisioning, hang on a minute, what if they're in the position where they're like, what are my core values? Like, what is that? What does that even mean to me? And how do I even establish that? So just as a bit of guidance and a bit of awareness to bring to core values, it's a great process that we could, we could go through this. Like, how do you distinguish one's core values?
Yeah, so it's simple. It's actually really simple. You ask yourself the question in the context of life, or in the context of relationships, or in the context of career. You pick one of these contexts. You ask yourself, what's truly important to me? That's the question. To elicit your values, to say what's important to me. Now, for a lot of people, actually, I would say for 99.999% of the population, most people, they aren't consciously aware of their values, because it's an unconscious program. It's basically stored in our unconscious mind. So we're not necessarily conscious of it. It's not like we wake up one day and we're not saying, right, my core value today is going to be health, right? It doesn't work that way, right? All the exposure,
I would love that.
all the conversations, all the books, the mentoring, the experience from our parents. As we're growing up as a kid, we're like a sponge, so we absorb all this. We're literally like a cookie cutter. So our core values are deeply embedded unconscious programs, and we need to bring them to conscious awareness. So again, it comes back to awareness. We need to become aware of them by asking a question like, what's important to me? We then end up with like a list of priorities, which is our core values. It's like we call it a values hierarchy. And that now becomes like that's essentially the operating parameter. It's like the operating principle for what we're experiencing in life, you know. So if you want to be healthier, but health and vitality is not one of your core values, then it's like someone getting to like a New Year's Eve resolution, and they say, you know what, I want to be healthy, I want to stop drinking, I want to eat healthy food, right? So they're making a conscious decision, but the unconscious programming means that they don't value that at all. So you now have a conflict. So again, we need to have awareness. There's all sorts of conflicts at the unconscious level, which is why, you know, if you ever want to make a decision and you find it difficult, like, well, I want to go that way, I want to go that way. The reason why there's a conflict is because we have a conflict in our values. There's a conflict in what's important. So this is a very advanced conversation, but for the guys watching, you can just ask yourself the question, what's truly important? And then you journal on it, you meditate on it. Definitely get yourself a coach, help a coach to elicit this from you, because once you create a conscious list of what's truly important to you, as opposed to just absorbing and just living with the unconscious values that you've inherited from your past, which are just conditioning, when you now consciously decide your values, that's how you create true empowerment for your life, because you now have a deliberate, conscious list of what's truly important, as opposed to what my parents told me was important, or what the television has been telling me is important, you know. So, or what my friends tell me is important. So this is all conditioned, and we need to very much challenge our core values.
Challenge them. They're an evolving thing, an evolving process, core values. So bringing them into the awareness of what's unconsciously might be running core value wise, and really asking and distinguishing what is important to me and taking action from that space each day. Because on a grand scheme of things, like you said, life can just slip away. Time can slip away, and it's really a beautiful place where we get to explore our dreams and we get to live our best life. And that starts with core values. It starts with understanding what is important in these different areas of life. And yeah, I just love that. It's a great thing to, like you said, meditate on, write down, journal around. And these things can evolve over time. You know, what was your core value to you now might be different 3 or 4, 4 or 5 years from now even. And so that's an evolving process, I do believe. And so I read something the other day which was really great. And by the way, anyone that's tuning in to the show, I'm also opening up the space at the end of the show to ask Chris any questions while we have him on the show. Anything, fire away at him. What shampoo he uses in his hair. These sort of get the questions out there, because we have the man on the show, and utilize the knowledge and the time and the experience that he has to uncover something that you might want to discover about yourself or about Chris and his work, those sort of things. So coming back to those core values is really like the thread or the life force that's coming through and how you're living your life. And so I was reading something about just the other day about business, and we can maybe speak about this just really quickly, but like business, your values in life don't have to be the same as your values in business. Otherwise, like, let's say you're running a business, and because I said your values do change over time. If you're running the same values in life as you're running on your business, when you start to change your values, then your business are going to try and it's going to fold and change with it, and it's not going to be in that alignment, where it's probably quite liberating and free when you have your own core values that can evolve and the business values stay the same throughout long term. Just speak to me about what you think about that, and how those two, in terms of your core values in life versus your core values in business, and how your perception and viewpoint on that.
Yeah, this is a really deep topic, and it's a pleasure to share my perspective on it. So my perspective is, for anyone who's looking to either get into business or design a business, create a business, typically what's required for business to be successful, there are some unique factors that are universal. Right now, again, when you're getting in business, the things that you need to value, i.e. the things that need to be important, are not necessarily the things that you like. So there's plenty of things that you need to value in business that are not necessarily comfortable. They're not necessarily the values that you've grown up with. So if you're wanting to design your vision, if you're wanting to design the ultimate expression of what that business is, then it needs to be very deliberate. You have to design it. It has to be constructed. And what that means is there needs to have values that are going to align with creating the result that you're looking for, as opposed to using the values that you've inherited in your own personal or family life to run your business, right? So for example, you might have You might have generosity like as a core value. Now, what that some people misinterpret that and they think, well, if I'm in business, that means I just need to give away my product for free, for example, right? Now, that would be an example of where, well, if you do that, if you've got beliefs around that and values around that, well, you're probably going to sabotage your business if you feel like you need to give
Mm.
away unresourcefully. So, again, we've got to be very, very careful about how we apply our values, and everyone's got different values and different interpretations of those. But we've got to decide, well, if I want to design my business, I need to design my values so that it's going to create the business that I want. So it's very much conscious design of an outcome. So that's the approach that I recommend most people have around values is, well, we need to look at, well, what's the outcome? What are we trying to create? And then reverse engineer it.
Absolutely. Reverse engineering is a great thing to practice in all manners of life, really. You can take it in any area. It's like a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to learn how to do a muscle up, and it took me a year to get, but I had to always look at reverse engineering how people are doing a muscle up. For those that don't know what that is, it's like on the bar and you pull your whole body weight up. And so it was like I had to constantly reverse engineer it in my head to break it down to then be able to do it. And so it's just you can apply reverse engineering to absolutely anything. And so I guess the moving into the last sort of topic of the night before questions at the end would be emotional mastery. And so we're touching base on, I mean, we've covered like consciousness, hacking your reality, unconscious, conscious, as well as like your beliefs and your values. And then the last piece I'd love to just add is just the emotional. It's kind of like the wave or the life force of life, the language of the body really is emotions. And so just touching a bit on the emotional spectrum because I was I was kind of pondering on this the other day and I was thinking to myself, and excuse my language, and I was thinking, wow, I think most human beings are quite emotionally retarded. Like since we're young, really young, like babies and stuff, if we're sad, we're really sad. If we're joyful, we're expressing it. And I feel like as we grow up and we get to adult stage especially, we're expressing like half of what's really going on emotionally and maybe suppressing a lot of it. And that in that sense, I think we're emotionally retarded where we're not fully feeling into the emotions that we're actually feeling at that time or at that moment and being able to let that come through or even have the space held for say anger or something like that to fully be expressed.
Mm. Yeah, well, you're spot on. One thing about emotions, and this is unfortunately, this is something that most children don't really get, and adults even don't even get educated on what is an emotion. And ultimately, an emotion is simply an action signal. An emotion is an internal action signal that you feel, which gives you awareness of what you're experiencing, right? So, for example, whatever you're experiencing in life, you're gonna get notified. Life is gonna like slap you around the face, or it's gonna light you up with joy to let you know, am I on track or am I off track? Am I in alignment or am I out of alignment? So your emotions are simply action signals to let you know what's actually happening in your environment, so you know how to respond. So this is a really powerful way to see emotions because a lot of people suppress their emotions. A lot of people shut them down because they think, oh, that's not comfortable. I'm just not going to deal with it. So what they do is they actually ignore the learning from that experience. So there's a learning experience that's coming through from every emotion. And as soon as we can actually welcome that and acknowledge that and understand what's the message I'm getting from my life or my reality or my internal perspective, what's the gift in that? That is ultimate empowerment because it lets us understand how do we get better results in life? How do we create better relationships? How do we create more alignment? So there's a blessing in every what people call a negative emotion. There's a blessing in every one of those because it's giving us feedback. It's giving us data. Hey, you're out of alignment here. And it might be out of alignment in terms of our actions. It might be out of alignment in terms of our thinking. It might be out of alignment in a lot of different areas. So there's a gift there if we're willing to be present and have the awareness to actually look within and see what's the gift there.
Incredible, incredible. That alone should just be rippled through education. That 3-4 minute description on and information on emotions itself and the action signal that it is, as well as the lesson that's truly coming through if we don't suppress it, if we feel into the uncomfortableness of that emotion. It's really showing us something or teaching us something about, are we on track? Are we off track? Can we question? Can we inquire about this emotion? In that sense, it's a gift to feel emotions, to really feel emotions. It's a beautiful gift.
Oh, 100%. And emotions are our, it's the fuel for life. Right? So if we're experiencing negative emotions, we can't be inspired. We're not motivated. We're not moving forward towards anything. So we've got to recognize our emotional world is our fuel. It's our life force. So we need to be very, very aware of the emotions we're experiencing, because they are powerful, and they either have the power to propel us forward and help us create, the most magnificent life ever, or they have the power to hold us back and to sabotage us completely, so that we don't express that greatness. So those emotions, that's our horsepower. That's like having a huge big V8 engine in your car by actually being able to master your emotions. You're able to like put your foot down the accelerator and floor it up the highway. When you master your emotions, that's the benefit, that's the ability that you have in life, because you can take action uninhibited.
Mm. And so what was coming up for me listening to that was, yeah, the emotions being the quality of our life in many ways, as well as, I do a lot of emotional clearing work, and a lot of my clients, especially men, a lot of the emotions that come up around different things unconsciously is indifference, like this ability to not feel into it, or to be detached from the outcome of it, and indifference, and these sort of things. And I just find it interesting along the way, how much are we not feeling into those emotions or suppressing those emotions? Because a question I asked before was about that inspiration, like what inspires us to take action, and really you got to feel it. It's like you got to it's like when you put on that song, you're like, oh man, this song, I feel it. Like Marvin Gaye, let's get it on. Like I'm feeling that coming through me, right? Yeah, exactly. And that propels the dancing forward. So it's like that's the action taking thing. And these emotions, if we feel into them, sometimes the unpleasant ones, I won't say negative, but the unpleasant ones can be a great indication to take action, or a great thing that's going to make us feel something, to be inspired by, or to change, or to and this is where I would like to loop the question back to when we spoke about core values, because we did mention like our values are also like, a compass as well. I'm wondering, is that emotional response based on our values unconsciously as well, or subconsciously? Like, say the emotional response to taking action, where we feel like on track or resistance, or there's a bunch of emotions coming up. Is that because, yeah, in a way, is that based on our values, how our emotions are playing out as well? Or is it based on what we're thinking, which triggers the emotion to come, like that thought loop where it's like, oh, I think this thing, and then the emotion, it's like really feel into thinking about being crushed in a car. It's like, oh, suddenly you feel these emotions and you start creating the experience of being crushed in a car. Like, wow, we're amazing. We can do that.
Yeah. The way that emotions work is that, when we're living in alignment with our values, or when we think about our values, ultimately, like, I think the core concept here that we need to talk about and I'll just introduce this, is the means value versus the ends value. Right? For example, money. Money is a classic example, right? Of everyone wants money, but a lot of people are not aware of why they want the money, right?
Mm.
Now, ultimately, the money is the means to experience the ends value of something, maybe like freedom or happiness or joy. So what can happen is people can get confused because they think what's important is the money, but really the whole reason why they're pursuing the money in the first place is to give them the emotional reward of maybe freedom, maybe empowerment, maybe joy, maybe spending time with their family so they can feel love. So there's actually a consequence here. By obtaining something, we get an emotional reward. That's really what our values are based around, is the emotional reward that we get from experiencing something. So that's what's
Okay.
going on
Okay.
unconsciously for every single person, even if they're not aware of it. It's kind of like the law
Right.
of gravity happening, even if you're not aware of it.
Okay. And so this really, just touching into a bit of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, but really we're talking about that Newtonian model of reality, where we kind of are waiting for some reason to feel like we're waiting for something externally to happen that's going to feel that emotional fulfillment. And then we're going to put a lot of emphasis on that's the thing that created that emotional response inside. And so it's like cause and effect. And then we stay in that, and as opposed to like we've been almost hypnotized in a way to thinking that's the only way, where we can actually instead shift into that quantum way of reality, where it's like we can create the emotional response before the thing even happens, before the event even happens, and give thanks for that already, versus like, oh, once that money comes in, then I'm giving myself permission to feel X, Y, and Z, or when I get that dunk, actually, I'm just experimenting early stages in this, but like I could feel the feelings of what it'd be like if I hit that dunk before the dunk even happened, and drawing that in, pulling that in, that experience in, and like kind of like surrendering that and taking that as like, cool, I felt that fully in me, and it's like I almost feel whole and complete, like I've already experienced it. And is that where the unconscious is like, hang on a minute, because it's most of that body, it doesn't know the difference between an emotion experience you create versus one that you see in the outside world that's like being triggered in there.
Yeah, 100%. Our unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between an imagined experience and a real experience. So
Mm-hmm.
it's that fundamental universal truth about human consciousness that lets us completely hack our reality, because we can imagine, like we can, and through meditation, through visualizations, through a lot of the Joe Dispenza type processes, we can completely hack about our reality to change all our beliefs, to change our perspectives, to change our emotions, to shift our mood. Again, this is the thing I think is another key power question is, when you wake up in the morning, the question that you ask yourself in the morning, right, is we've got to be aware of, well, what's actually going through our mind the first thing when we wake up. Is it, what have I got to do, or is it, what can I be grateful for today? What can I share? What can I give? What can I celebrate? So again, there's all these unconscious questions that we're actually asking at every moment of the day. We have on average of 70,000 thoughts per day. We need to become conscious of, well, what are the thoughts and the questions that I'm firing into my body, and that has consequences. So we need to be aware of, well, what's the thinking that I'm having is the first thing I want to wake up in the morning. Is it gratitude and love, or is it like, oh my God, I've got to go to work, I've got to deal with this, like, oh my God, I've got to get up. So again, all comes back to awareness, and there's this beautiful interplay between emotions and our thinking and our beliefs, and we've got to get really curious about hacking all of this, because life is tough enough as it is. We've got to look for every advantage we can possibly get, right? We look for every little 1% we can get, and so asking something like that in the morning, asking a question like, what can I be grateful for? What am I looking forward to? What do I want to experience today? These are the empowering questions we've got to ask, because we've got to override the conditioning that we might have been asking some pretty negative questions for our whole entire life. So we've got to create that conscious shift to then create the unconscious shift.
And by asking those conscious, like having the awareness to ask those different questions, creates a different emotional response to the question. But if it's the same emotional response that's being triggered over and over based on the question that we're asking unconsciously, that can be quite a diminishing question. It can be a diminishing answer without even putting a question, because question opens up the possibility. It could sometimes just be an answer. It's like, oh, I got to do this today, this today, this today. It's like you've locked in what today is, pretty much, like, really. And so, yeah, it's just having that awareness, like you said, key coming back to this awareness. And I heard this story, and I was listening. I must have been on a podcast or something like this, and I still have troubles believing it, but I'm impressed nonetheless. Was the story of this, I think it was an entrepreneur or some millionaire that wouldn't get out of bed in the morning, until he had tears of gratitude, until he had brought himself to such a grateful place inside that a tear was shed each morning. And this was his practice each morning. He wouldn't get out of bed physically until a tear was shed. And I remember listening to that 2 years ago, and I tried that like in the morning. I tried that a few mornings. I couldn't get to that place. I literally sat down on the beach and I spent 2.5 hours at the beach until I could cry from gratitude. It was the most amazing feeling, but it took me ages. And I just remember thinking to that guy, man, like, wow, I can't, like, he's on a different level in terms of being able to tap in that space and cry from gratitude every morning. Whether he was disciplined and practiced that every morning, not sure, but it was still enough to just invite me into that possibility of like, there could be someone out there that's crying every morning out of gratitude before he gets out of bed. So I'm not saying that those that are tuning in on the show, like, you can, by all means, like, if you do reach that point, please send me a message and just high five to you, because that's an amazing point of gratitude to get to every morning. Props to you.
Yeah, that's so powerful, and I think it doesn't matter whether you get to the point of crying. I think that's a beautiful standard to set for yourself. I think it starts with just asking empowering questions. Like even just asking that question, like, what can I be grateful for? What do I love about my life? What do I want to upgrade about my life? What can I celebrate? So there's only two things you can do in life. You can either ask a question or answer a question. So the quality of the questions that we're asking defines the quality of our consciousness and the quality of the responses that we get. So you can completely hack all your thinking if you substitute all of the 70,000 thoughts you've got in a day with empowering new questions that are taking you into new territory, that are pushing you beyond the patterns and the habits and the limitations of your past. So we've got to start to come up with new questions. You know? And I think I remember hearing a statistic from neuroscientists, and I can't remember what it was, but it's like either 80% or 90% of our thoughts that we have are the same every day. The same. So if you're having the same thoughts every day, how do you expect you can possibly create a new reality? Because you're living in Groundhog Day. So we've got to hack our thinking, we've got to hack our questions, we've got to be pay attention to what's going on inside this thing. Because the only way that we can create results in our external reality is by mastering our internal reality. That's the only way it works. Success is an inside job. Success is 100% an inside job. And the way to access that is through understanding our consciousness and our thinking and what are the questions we're asking.
Excellent. I love that. Success is an inside job. And so those that are tuning in live right now, if you have any questions for Chris, I'm definitely opening up the space right now. Anything that you would pop his way. I actually think that's a damn good question I came up with before. What shampoo do you use? But but this is key because, just going into the theme of questions, it's like, what are the questions we're asking? How are are we replacing these thoughts that are happening, the 70,000, the same each day, with some really empowering questions that we can just shift in there. And so Chris mentioned earlier in the call some amazing questions that you can ask yourself. And we'll probably drop in one more question, Chris, that we can present to the audience as well, to the listeners, of a question they could ask themselves. Because I'm just inviting in. I'm such a big believer in the better questions we're asking, the better our shifts in awareness that are occurring, to open up that possibility of like, oh, I never saw it from that space, because you asked the question initially. So just having that practice of daily questioning can really just start changing your external environment, because you're beginning to bring that awareness and that question to your internal environment first and foremost.
Oh, so powerful. Oh, it's the way to hack your reality completely, right? And that's even a great question is, what is a question I can ask myself today that's a new question that's going to transform my life, that's going to create a breakthrough, that's going to give me access to a new perspective? What question do I need to ask? So even just asking the question, what questions do I need to ask? It's going on a mission. It's being obsessed and being really, really curious about what are the new questions I've got to ask myself. I think that's a powerful one.
That is a great one. And absolutely.
Think like journaling processes as well. I have a journaling process every day. I've got a series of questions, like powerful questions that help me reflect on my day. What did I learn from today? How do I want to improve taking the learnings of today to tomorrow? Like, what did I learn? What did I enjoy? What was I grateful for? What were the amazing experiences? Maybe what were the uncomfortable emotions that I had today that would give me actions about how I'm out of alignment? Where am I not taking action in life? Right? How am I showing up? Am I being the greatest version of myself? Am I being authentic? Am I a leader? Am I a role model? What sort of standards am I living in my life? And who am I surrounding myself with? Like, these are the kinds of questions you've got to ask daily. And I recommend that people having a journaling process where they reflect on this every day, because the regular, consistent internal reflection of self is the fastest way to evolve your consciousness. That's the fastest way. Like, it's even faster than reading a book. It's faster than going to a seminar. If you can actually consciously reflect on your experience and identify what were your unconscious internal limitations that day, you can make more progress in a year than you'll make in a decade of just reading books, right? So that's why meditation combined with journaling, combined with coaching, combined with really consciously reflecting on our life, so powerful. And the results you can create is powerful. Like, it's mind-blowing what you can do with just these simple processes.
It's getting me so excited to stand here. I love talking about this stuff. I love implementing this stuff as well. And I hope everyone else feels the inspiration, whether you're watching the replay or you're watching us live, from this alone. It's incredible to feel that come through. It's like in the morning, tomorrow morning, it's just like, screw breakfast. I'm just eating questions for breakfast. It's like, what's my juiciest question I can lay out and sizzle up in that pan and just begin to expand really the conscious awareness around how you're starting your day, because that's so key. That's how you're starting your day. And are you starting your day with a question for breakfast, like a juicy question of like, what's the best version of myself today? Or how would, you know, if I had everything that I thought I, you know, knew I was complete and whole, how would I begin to express? Or how would I even get out of bed and start? Like, would it be getting out of bed and drop down, do 2 push-ups, and then come out and just like look at yourself in the mirror going, yes, like already that changed and that shifted the energy of how you're starting your day, the momentum, the flow. I had another game changer on the last show. We talked about the micro flow, these little things where you're bringing that mindfulness to your day to day to create the momentum throughout your day where you can be in flow. And so I believe if no one else has any questions, if you do have a question, Michael, Shelly, anyone that's watching, if you have a question to ask Chris, I'm opening up the space now. I know Chris and I just like when we get talking, it just timelessness starts to happen. I'm not even sure what time it is, and so it's yeah, I think it's coming to the time where we start to wrap down and close down the show. Even though I feel like we could both just speak about this for eons, but there's plenty that was covered here. So much juicy content, and I'm going to be disciplined this week to extract the little golden nuggets and start posting them as little short 1 minute videos, whether that's on Instagram or Facebook too, just so those that are watching are like, whoa, 45 minutes of my time, because I know how, you know, much of goldfishes we are these days on social media. It's like, oh, the 30 seconds, oh, next 30 seconds. So just extracting down some of that information. And yeah, Chris, I'd love to just finish, unless anyone has any more questions on two things. One, a question I have for you, and then two, just a little bit about where we can find you and those that want to work with you or reach out to you and have anything, even though in the description I have it up there, it's just nice for you to announce it as well. So my question to you would be, it's like your last day, you've lived an incredibly epic life, you're on this island, and you have this one bottle that you can stick a message in, this message that you can send back to society, family, whoever it's going to be, right? And you're on this island, you've lived this incredible life, and you're like, yeah, I'm content. What's the message you put in that bottle to send back to the world?
It would be everything that you want to experience in this life, you can experience it, and it's within your control, and you are the one that's creating it. And you can either create it or you can not create it, but ultimately it's within your power. And when you master yourself, when you master your internal reality, when you understand consciousness, when you understand the awareness of self, you become completely empowered to be the full expression of the signature of your soul in this life. And it only comes through knowing yourself, and it only comes through then taking action and caring enough about your life to then decide, you know what, it's worth it. It's so worth it. I'm going to do whatever it takes to create that.
So worth it. Caring enough to love yourself to do this, to love yourself to take action, to, oh, incredible. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, please let the audience know what can we do to reach out to you, or where's the best place that we can find Chris Jackson and what he's up to, and you know, whether that's one-on-one, whether that's a retreat, or whether that's just little gemstones like you've shared tonight.
Yeah, well, for guys that are wanting to check out more sort of conversations like this, I have my Facebook Live channel, which is Chris Jackson Coaching, and I run my Transformation Tuesdays every single Tuesday at 6:30 Perth time, 8:30. I know we're now 9:30. Now that we're 3 hours ahead in Victoria and Eastern States, so that's where people can check out more of my stuff. I run training courses, I run retreats, I do personal coaching, one-on-one coaching. So for anyone that wants to reach out, that wants to experience any of that, the best way to do it is just go to my website, contact me, give me a call, and I can share what I think might be the best approach for you. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So yeah, for people that are curious to find out more, send me a message, send me an email, connect with me on Facebook. Love to have a chat to see how I can share the best of what I got with you.
Sensational. Yeah, many blessings for having, once again, your time and really sharing. Like, I feel like we got to go deeper this time around as well. And what was uncovered was a lot, and it was incredible. Just the experience, the felt experience of it as well. And I'm just curious now, what shampoo do you use since I came through with the question? Do you even use shampoo? Because you know you got them hair people out there that are like, some people like, I don't use any products, which is kind of me actually, to be honest.
I don't even know the brand. It's just this organic stuff that smells really nice. Yeah, I don't even like. I literally probably wash my hair maybe like once a week. I don't know.
Love it. We're gonna definitely close on that. close on that. And yeah, appreciate that, everything that you shared tonight. Thank you, Game Changer. Thank you, Chris Jackson.
Thank you, brother. It's a pleasure being on the show. Appreciate your energy, and it's always a pleasure to have these kinds of conversations. So much love, brother. Thank you, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. See you, legends.